Hi everyone, so let's now take a look at different sources of borrowing that can be used. We're going to focus on shorter term sources of borrowing in this first lesson and look at those longer term methods in our next lesson. So let's get stuck in. First up, we've got an overdraft, okay? So when it comes to an overdraft, as we've seen before, it's the ability to withdraw money that you do not have so that you are actually going into a negative bank balance. All right. Now, the advantages, of course, are that interest is only charged on the amount that's actually outstanding. So if you go £1,000 overdrawn, you are only charged on that £1,000. Your overdraft facility might be £2,000, but you're only charged interest on that first £1,000 then. It can also be paid off without any penalties, and you can do this over the course of a number of months, or you might alternatively do it in one go. It doesn't matter. It's also a short-term cash flow solution, so it can just be useful to have as a bit of a buffer. So that's a real pro in terms of the favourable points there. Now, the downsides, of course, though, there are disadvantages because of the high interest that is charged on overdraft facilities. Okay, there's also nasty penalty charges if your overdraft is unauthorised. So you've got to make sure that the overdraft facility is actually authorised by the bank before you actually use it. Otherwise, it's very expensive. And it does raise the issue of the potential for overspending. Knowing it's there may encourage you to overspend. Okay, next up, we've got credit cards, all right? So credit cards we've seen before, but of course it's a form of borrowing. You are taking out credit, and that is money that needs to be repaid later. Okay, so it's issued by banks allowing customers to delay their payments, okay? It allows that period of credit, which is 1 month interest free, but then the interest rate is quite steep, of course. It also provides flexibility in repayment, so you could just pay a minimum charge, a minimum repayment on your outstanding balance. However, it will be very expensive if you choose to actually pursue that route, and it may actually take years to even pay off a relatively small balance in doing so. So you do have flexibility here, however. So if your minimum repayment is perhaps £10, you could choose to actually pay back £50, or like most people that actually don't use it as a facility for borrowing, you could have it paid off in full at the end of each month. Having it paid off in full at the end of each month means that you can benefit from the sort of loyalty features these cards often offer without actually incurring any interest expense. So that can be a really useful concept with credit cards. Next up, disadvantages. Well, it can lead to overspending and high debt, of course, and that debt can quickly become unsustainable if you have a number of credit cards, and the interest burden on those cards, of course, is quite high. And that's our final point that I've noted down here. Okay, so let's move on to our last one, payday loans. Well, we can see that really these are getting more expensive as we come down here, okay? So they are becoming more and more costly. So this is, of course, used to bridge the gap between paydays. It helps solve those immediate cash flow problems, perhaps not having any food at all to being able to actually afford some food perhaps. It's relatively easy to obtain, and it's frighteningly fast as well in terms of how quick that money can actually arrive in your bank account. I think it's within half an hour or so of actually going onto their website. Okay, now there's also the interest burden, though, which we've got to bear in mind here, okay? So the interest rate is very, very high, and a small amount soon becomes very expensive. There are additional fees as well in terms of actually utilising payday lenders, which is something else that you would also be able to specify in relation to those disadvantages. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks ever so much for joining me. Which of these is the worst? Which of these is better? Please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.